welcome back to another episode of Uncensored Truth in Medicine. I'm Dr. Molly James. I am honored to have our guest today, Dr. Kirk Moore. You've probably heard his name as the famous plastic surgeon from Las Vegas who took care of children appropriately during COVID. I will let him get into the story, but you know, I'm always bringing you the intersection of medicine, current events, and politics. So he meets that criteria in all three fronts. Dr. Kirk Moore, welcome to the show.
Oh, hi, Molly. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So I heard about your story. This is a couple years now. Tell people kind of, you had a successful plastic surgery or do have a successful plastic surgery practice. You're doing your thing. How did you get involved in the COVID craziness?
Long story short is I'm a single dad raising my two kids. I shut my office down thinking that, hey, this thing is really dangerous. And within about 5 or 6 days of me just sitting at the same laptop that I'm talking to you on at the same table in my kitchen with nothing to do, I completely reversed course and realized that this was just nothing but a scam. That was middle of March of 2020. And so after that, starting with that, I started early treatment on people. I had friends, family, everybody. I started calling in hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, you name it, listening to Vladimir Zelenko on TV. I found at the time, I think Peter McCullough was another one. He got enrolled in some sort of a study at the beginning where he was, allowed to use hydroxychloroquine at the time. And that was the beginning. And so then at that point, when people realized that I was treating people and, they were being told by their primary care docs in emergency rooms and clinics to go home and wait until their lips were blue and they could barely talk or speak, to then call them and be intubated and killed. I just started treating people. That was the beginning of, everything. And then obviously that, we all know the story, started talking about, nothing's going to get back to normal until we have a vaccine. And I'm a vaccine skeptic. I got shingles from my hepatitis vaccine when I started medical school in 1989.
Oh, wow.
And so my kids are not vaccinated. My daughter's partially vaccinated. My son's not. The only vaccine that we've received here in the last 20 years almost is a yellow fever vaccine to go to Africa for a humanitarian trip. And thankfully that was just a once in a lifetime thing. I think there's a 10-year, time frame on that for whatever reason. There's no science behind that either, but, anyway, so when I start hearing things like that, then that was another huge red flag to me. I enrolled to give vaccines in 2021 in March, April, May, I think was when we started. And then we stopped in October of 2022. So about a year and a half.
So first of all, I just want to give you kudos because you were one of the very first, the frontline doctors. I mean, I didn't start doing early treatment until the end of 21. So you were really on the cusp of the front line doing it when I didn't even hear about it. So kudos to you for that. And, being available for your patients, because obviously I think time is proving everyone right that was on the right side of COVID. Yeah. And, right now, as we're speaking, they're just disassembling USAID. And we're finding that all the propaganda was funded from taxpayer money through the federal government. I don't think there's anybody who's on the COVID vaccine side of it that didn't have a paycheck from it at this point. Right. I'm convinced.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was nothing. It's a money laundering operation. Ukraine's a money laundering operation. This whole US AID, it's just kind of like aid. What are they aiding? Your tax dollars and my tax dollars were fighting. I mean, it's kind of like we're punching ourselves in the face. $14 million went to the New York Times last year alone. We're paying for the Politico Pro subscription for 20,000 federal employees. It's just the grift, the corruption is just astounding to me. And the interesting thing is that nobody's talking about that. Everybody's saying, well, what are you doing with USAID and all of this kind of higher level stuff? But yet nobody actually talks about, hey, yeah, Elon Musk, you may not like him and he may not be the perfect guy in the world, but look at what he's exposing. Look at the information that he's putting out there. Nobody's even
Yeah.
talking about that.
Yeah. It makes me wonder if they had a sign up to, would you like to fund how fast shrimps run on a treadmill? Would you want to put
Right. I saw that.
your 25% of your income to funding that?
Right.
I don't think any of us
Right.
would choose those things if we were given an opportunity. So,
No, I mean,
so
it's just kind of like when it's the same thing with medicine, Molly. It's the same thing with, with insurance. When your patients and a doctor have no control over who the person is that's paying for it, then everybody loses control out of that. And that's exactly what's happened here is, our money, we pay our taxes, and then the government just does what it wants with it because there's no accountability in between there. If they come to us and they say, hey, we want to spend $1 million doing this, we're going to say no or say yes, whether it benefits us or not.
mhm.
That's the scary part. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
So how did people find out that you were administering vaccines? I'm going to do this. Because there's so many people I know personally that either just fake their own vaccine card. They went to somebody that they knew that, squirted it in the garbage and gave them their numbers and their lot numbers so they could go on and participate in life. I understand why you got into it, but like, how did that work? How did people know to call you? How did they know what they were going to get?
Word of mouth. I started talking to, it was mainly, I started my vaccine clinic for friends and family,
Hmm.
so that they wouldn't have to go anywhere else.
Hmm.
And then it kind of grew from there.
Hmm. Yeah, very good. And you
I mean,
gave
it
people what
certainly
they
wasn't
wanted,
advertising. It
right?
certainly wasn't advertising. Yeah, no, nobody got what they didn't expect to get. Everybody
Hmm.
had full. I mean, again, we talk about informed consent. Um, I'm a surgeon. Okay, I don't take anybody anywhere without a full informed consent on something.
Yeah.
And we gave them as much informed consent as we could possibly give them,
Hmm.
with a 24 by 36 piece of paper that said intentionally left blank on both sides, about what it is that you're getting injected with. So you
Yeah.
give them and you show them that information, and then they make a choice in terms of what it is that they want to do, both for themselves and for their kids.
Hmm. Yeah. And with my surgical background too, this is what blew my mind is not only giving patients informed consent about that, but for me, I had the most informed consent you possibly could have because I was in the ICU taking care of COVID patients on one hand and COVID vaccine injured on another. I knew the ramifications at the top end of both of those. And the hospitals still didn't entrust me to make my own healthcare decisions.
Right?
They'd
Yeah, they're
pay me to
forcing
make
you to
it.
do whatever it is.
Yeah,
Right.
they're paying me to make decisions for other people, but I can't make my own decisions. That to me defied all logic on a personal level.
Right.
So back to your story. So you're offering vaccines in whichever way the family wanted them, given or not given, right? You gave them a
Right.
card. How did anyone find out that there was a question to this, or that who thought this was a problem, and how did that come to the attention of authority?
Well, good. That's a really good question. The we ended up getting, a sting operation coming through the office. So this was a word of mouth operation. And so somebody found out, somebody got it, somebody's name, used that name, came in, and then got a vaccine card. They then gave it to, their boyfriend, or they said, hey, their boyfriend needs to get one too. And so we had a second sting operation officer come in. I'll finish the story here in a little bit. It's kind of funny. Um, and then in January of 23, 11 or 12, it was a joint task force. It was the HHS, FBI, and, um, another agency, I can't remember, showed up in my office. 11 or 12 agents just kind of came in, confiscated our phones. And then a week later, we find out that we've been indicted. So, And it, again, all interesting. We never got served. We never had anybody come to our office. We never received anything via mail. We found out through through the internet. I get an email the following Wednesday in the morning from reputation.com saying, "Hey, we can help you with your reputation." And they send me a screenshot of an article that was published in a newspaper that said that, plastic surgeon and staff have been indicted on, fake COVID vaccine cards. So on January 26th, we have our hearing for our arraignment. And it's been multiple delays, and, multiple motions and everything else, a lot of expense, over $500,000 into, this whole process of helping protect us and pay attorney's fees and everything else. So, and
Is
then,
this a
loss of
federal case?
business. So
Is this a federal
it is.
case?
So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So
Um,
hopefully with the grown-ups back in charge, this case is going to go away. And we've seen this with some of our collegial friends that were attacked by a very biased administration that had very partisan views, very unethical views on things. Dr. Ethan Haim was
yep.
brought up on charges for being a whistleblower with Texas children performing gender mutilation surgeries. I'm going to call him that. He was a
Right.
whistleblower down there and got attacked by our federal government bureaucracy. And that now has dissolved since Trump has been in office. So I'm hopeful for you. And I think anybody with common sense is praying that reasonable heads prevail in this. And hopefully you're done. These charges
Yeah.
go away.
Well, I'm so happy for Ethan. I mean, again, what he was going through and what they did, for him. Again, as a whistleblower, you're supposed to be protected on, for doing information, for exposing information like that. It's kind of like the whole thing with USAID. I mean, we're not even talking about we're not talking about the actual fraud that's happening. We're talking about the mechanics of it. Like, oh, do you like Elon Musk or not? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Nobody's
Right.
talking about what it was that he exposed. And that's exactly the same thing here. There are no victims. I didn't hurt anybody. There's none of my patients turned me in. Um, it wasn't anything where, I've all of a sudden kind of hurt or maimed or murdered or killed any of my patients.
Yeah.
If anything, I did the opposite. Um,
You
and,
protected them.
you look at, you look at numbers, you look at, Denny Rancourt's numbers, who, has done tremendous amount of, research and everything else on all this. He says 1 in 800 people across the world have died from from a COVID job. 1 in 800. So out of the almost 2,000 patients that that they claim that I treated, I saved at least 2 people from being killed.
Mm-hmm.
And then the numbers are in some numbers, the numbers that Aaron Siri got from the VSafe data, that said up to a third of people either couldn't go to work or have been injured and are permanently disabled. A third. So now you take the 2,000 people, there's 700 people that are not injured or maimed from just what it is that we've taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
Molly, it's not about truth. It's not about justice. It's not about anything other than just punishment. The process is the punishment. They've made a decision that I did something wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't matter to them, whether it was done with the right intentions or however it was done. I quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote violated a law that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just going after me to get a notch in their belt to show that they have another win under their under their sails, or and that they
Mm-hmm.
can get a promotion because they've just put some scary doctor in jail for 15 years. So
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I had the DOJ, the DEA, the DHHS, and the state medical board show up at my volunteer clinic, my little operation of volunteers in North Carolina. And I wasn't there. I was at my home clinic seeing my patients. That was intimidating over the phone, hearing they're here, they're inspecting us, they're shutting you down.
right,
People have no idea the pressure that you're under when that happens, like the stress that imposes in your life, in the people that work in your business that care about you. They have no idea.
right. Yeah, I mean, when my daughter dropped out of college, come back home. My son's, we talked about that. My son's in high school. Um,
Mhm.
you know, both of, it's this, my daughter was kind of centrist, leaning left, kind of typical, high school aged, late teenage, daughter. She's 21 now, but, um,
Mhm.
she realized, she looked at all this and just kind of like, wow, what's going on? I mean, the same thing, when the FBI is showing up in Florida at the housewives that are in there complaining, at the school board meetings about, the stuff that's being taught to their kids, and next thing you know, the FBI is knocking on their door. I mean, it's crazy the level of injustice that happens in these situations and scenarios. It's just
Mhm.
it's actually pretty disturbing to think that we're in a country that
Yeah.
you can't express your opinion anymore, um, and without having somebody show up at your door to say, "Hey, we're the FBI and we need to talk to you."
Yeah. Well, and I think this is really important for patients because there were a lot of patients that didn't understand this. They said, why aren't more doctors doing this? Why aren't more doctors doing the right thing? Why aren't more doctors doing early treatment? Because of this, because of exactly what we're talking about right now, because we lost jobs, we lost business, our licenses were in jeopardy. And it wasn't necessarily, I had a situation, I had a patient out in Washington State. The 50-year-old adult children asked us for a prevention consult for them and their 80-ish year old parents. And so we saw the four of them. We got them the meds they needed in case they got sick. And another family member on the other side of the family tree is a nurse practitioner that's unhinged and reported us to the medical board and tried to create problems. So it's not necessarily the patient or the patient's
Right.
family, it's some remote relative somewhere that can come in and cause these problems. And that's nothing to practice and be afraid of, but is a very real entity that costs legal fees.
Right. Well, I mean, it's usually that. I mean, our system is supposed to be set up so that somebody somebody complains about something, and then they do an investigation. And then after they do the investigation, they come up with some sort of decision about, hey, this is what's happened, or this is what we think has happened. And then at that point, you go talk to the person that you're supposed to be investigating. In our system right now, that doesn't happen. It's kind of like, if they already believe that whatever it is that that person is complaining about, or they find somebody to actually fake complain, about what it is that you're doing, and they already believe that, that you're already doing something wrong, or they have this belief system that's based on that. Then it short circuits the whole system, and then all of a sudden you're kind of like, now you're presumed guilty before before anything else. They come in, they handcuff you, they throw you in jail, and they kind of ruin your life. They don't, it's not a matter, like I said, it's not a matter of justice or truth. It's just about winning. Um, and, they think that, they're, and not only that, the playing field, the rules change. The goalposts get moved. And, one rule one day is not the same rule the next day. So,
Mhm.
um, and that's, and that's, it's the scary part.
It is really scary. And again, I'm hoping we see the justice system change because as a conservative or conservative leaning, I feel like our people were attacked the last 4 years. You would have rioters in the street lighting buildings on fire that were let go or, accused
Right.
of murder, Antifa, that was dismissed without bail. And yet your pro life people who were standing outside of an abortion clinic and praying spent time in prison.
Right.
There's no justice
Right.
system where those two things should be happening in the same equal and fair system.
Right. Well, you have that classic, I don't remember who it was, whether it was a CNN or MSNBC journalist on TV, with buildings burning in the background from the riots, talking about like, oh, yeah, there's just a minor demonstration here, right? And it's
Mostly
nothing to worry
peaceful.
about. Mostly peaceful demonstration.
Yeah.
In the meantime, you've got, millions of dollars of buildings and everything else that are going on in the
Yeah.
background, that are burning down. And oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's mostly peaceful operation. I mean, it's just, um, And the fact that, the other side of this, Molly, is that people don't see it. Um, Ed Dowd had an interview a couple years ago where he was talking about, I think it was his ethics professor at his MBA program, talked about when, facts don't matter to people whose foundations are based on beliefs, whose system, their core is they believe. I have
Yeah.
had patients of mine that, that are kind of like, well, I'm telling them, hey, this COVID vaccine is not a good thing. And, and they're like, and I'm giving them all the data. And the first words out of her mouth was, well, I just believe my doctor. I just believe, right?
Hmm.
Instead of like assimilating the information that you give them. And you probably run into this on a regular basis, daily basis, where, I do a breast augmentation technique that's a little bit different than other people. Okay. I'm not the only crazy guy out there. I don't use pain medicine. I don't use narcotics. My patients are up within 2 hours of surgery. They're, no pain, no nothing, nothing. Okay. And I have them come in with their friends, and their friends are like, well, that's not what I went through. I was in pain for 2 weeks. I couldn't raise my arms above my head. I couldn't, and
Yeah.
so you have that, right? You have that skepticism that's out there. Why don't we have that same skepticism that's built into, other things? I mean, it's kind of like vaccines are the end all be all panacea of, of medicine. And that's what people have been brainwashed to thinking.
Hmm.
And it's not true.
Yeah.
There's not one study, there's not one long-term randomized placebo-controlled study on any vaccine that's ever been done. Some people claim it was one done on polio, but that was, there's some argument about that study too. Every other vaccine's always been compared against either the the antigen-free version of the vaccine or previous vaccines. And then no studies ever been done on what it's going to be when you take a 12-month-old baby and you give them 17 shots. Okay, what the cumulative
Right.
effect is of all of that, and the fact that we've got Bill Cassidy in Congress, kind of railing against RFK. RFK knows more about vaccines than Bill Cassidy has in the tip of his little finger. Okay,
Right. Right.
um, and he's sitting there saying, you know, kind of castigating him in public. And he doesn't know squat. He really doesn't. And it's just, and the hubris of these people, to think that, hey, I have an MD after my name, and so I'm therefore smarter than you are. We've been lied to on every level. And I'm finding this out on a daily basis, from the get go. The last 120 years of medicine to me is a big fraud. Um, and I'm finding more and more out every time I open up, some email, or every time I start doing some research on something. It's really kind of disturbing.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up a point because as we're sitting here recording, currently RFK has had his confirmation hearing, and the Democrats in the Senate are delaying his vote, his confirmation vote. We're looking at putting vaccine liability back on the table, and you have idiots like Senator
Right.
Elizabeth Warren saying, well, you're going to bankrupt the vaccine companies. Yeah, because they're so dangerous. Maybe that's a
Right.
problem. And you
Right.
just know she's concerned about all that money. She's getting millions of dollars from them a year. You don't care about the 2-year-old who's going to walk in and get 8 shots in their legs?
Right.
How
Yeah.
do people not
Um,
see it?
well, it's because it's not exposed. The New York Times got $14 million last year alone from our federal government. Washington
Yeah.
Post, I think, got $12 million. That was last year alone. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, and why? I mean, we start talking about, state controlled media. Well, we never knew that, our federal tax dollars were actually going to the New York Times. Did you know that? I
I
didn't know
didn't know
that.
that.
Did you know that we spent $20 million last year to have Angelina Jolie go over and shake hands with Vladimir Zelensky? Okay. I mean, it's kind of like, that's what USAID was doing, spending
Yeah.
money, giving it to George Soros, giving it to Politico.
Yeah.
Um,
Giving it to people
and,
who hate
our tech,
us, who hate
right,
us.
right, right.
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
I did know that there was a funding source. I don't know if you remember right at the very beginning of COVID, they had all these celebrities come in and do their charity from home, and they were singing in their backyards. Do you remember that? It was very early on, like April, and they were doing a fundraising, virtual teledrive. They were all paid. And I
Yeah.
think as you start to unravel this, you see how things are connected, and there are very few puppet masters pulling the strings. And
Right.
I guess I knew media was owned. I thought it was mostly Bill Gates funding it. I didn't realize if you take that one step further back, where does that originate? It's
Right.
taxpayer money.
Right. Right.
So,
Jeffrey Epstein was being paid by USAID. Why is he getting money? George Soros is, Bill Gates is, Gavi is. I mean, you name it. I mean, it's
yeah.
just. I mean, I could pull up my Twitter feed right now and just go through the whole list of agencies that are out there. I mean, you mentioned Elizabeth Warren. I think she's gotten $19 million since 2019 from various pharmaceutical companies. Not, no, well, big pharma, donations. The other interesting thing to me, which came across in this, and there's another Substack article that I follow, and it was a chart that came out. Her name's Jennifer, and she showed that the highest, the largest amount of money that was going to these politicians, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and so on, came from our medical societies. Have you seen that chart?
Oh, I haven't.
So
I
out
need
of
to see that.
so you know how Bernie Sanders, there was a claim that he received like 2.5 or $3 million or
Yeah.
something like that from Big Pharma.
Yeah.
Well, he got $23 million, and I want to say the numbers might be slightly off, and I can send you the chart, but 19 million of that came from medical societies. Okay, so I guarantee you that when you look at this, and because where's the AMA getting this? Where's the American College of Surgeons getting this? American Society of Plastic Surgeons? They don't have that kind of money. They're not getting that kind of money from our dues. I
Mm-hmm.
guarantee you, they're getting it either from Big Pharma or
Mm-hmm.
from companies like USAID or not these or these NGOs that are then paying them. And all it is a money funding. It's just a money laundering operation.
Totally.
This money gets donated to them, so that company then gets a tax donation. They don't pay taxes on it.
Yep.
The money comes in as a donation to the AMA, let's say, for example, and then the AMA donates that to Bernie Sanders, right?
Mm-hmm.
But by far, the largest percentage came from medical societies. And I was
Yeah.
just like, where are these companies getting that money? I
Yeah.
mean, it's just kind of like, and so then you wonder why is the American College of Surgeons going after people like you and American Society of Plastic Surgeons, American Association of Pediatrics, whatever it is, the, Pediatric Society and internal
AAP. Yeah.
medicine people,
Yeah.
why are they trying to take licenses away from, Mary and Peter and Pierre Corey and everything else? So, where are
Right.
they getting that money? Where are they doing that? Well, they're getting paid by all these organizations, all these NGOs, probably through
Yep.
USAID. I mean, it's a total grift,
Yeah.
and nobody's talking about this.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about, oh, we don't want to give Elon Musk access to those treasury records, and we don't want him having that information. Well, who cares who has that information? It's being exposed. That's the big thing. It's just kind of
Yeah.
like, we sent Snowden to Russia for, exposing information. We kept, I'm blanking on his name. Who's the guy that spent, 10 years at the Ecuadorian embassy in
Julian Assange.
the WikiLeaks guy. Yeah. Julian Assange. Nobody talks about what it was that he exposed. They just talk about who he is. Oh yeah, he
Right.
raped that 12-year-old girl. No, he didn't. That was a made up charge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the level of corruption is just astounding, and it's really scary. So
Well, and Dr. James Thorpe and his wife Maggie Thorpe, she's an attorney, they've actually dug into some of this funding, and they found that the
yeah,
CDC, through these vaccine grants and vaccine programs, actually paid all of these organizations. They've tracked that. And they've
right,
paid the American College of Surgeons and the American Board of Internal Medicine. And these organizations have received direct funds to make statements on COVID. They didn't know what the hell
right,
they were talking about. They have, and this is what I brought to some of these different organizations. I said, you have no mechanism to determine if this is a quality treatment or not. That's not your job.
right,
That's not your wheelhouse, and you can't make those statements. And even the American College of Surgeons, when I was under, they censured me, which who cares? I just dropped them because I don't need them. I just kind of joined to piss them off anyway because I'm a DO and doing integrative medicine. So I thought I was kind of a thorn in their side the whole time. But I looked at their website and I said, here's what you are saying. This is all incorrect. This is misinformation that you're accusing me of. And I'm showing you directly. These statements have been disproven by your people. And you're referencing CNN. you're referencing this is your bottom
Right.
line reference for what you're telling people.
Right.
Um,
Right.
it's just
Yeah,
amazing.
your footnote number one is an article that was published in CNN from some journalist, some claimed,
It's true.
somebody who claims to
Yeah.
be a medical journalist, right? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
you look, the more this is what I've gotten into, Molly, over the last 5 years now, almost five. It'll be five in March. Um, every rabbit hole that I go down just does nothing but further expose the level of corruption. I mean, there have been some editors. Uh, that have come out, editors of the British Medical Journal, editors of the New England Journal of Medicine, everything else that have come out and talked about how in excess of 50% of the information that gets published, the medical information and journal articles that get published are probably fraudulent. Um,
Hmm.
and yet those, they have they make a statement and, they get 30 seconds of publicity and then it just gets pushed aside and then the people get the other editors of the New England Journal of Medicine get put on the vaccine board to approve vaccines for
Hmm.
neonatals neonate our our infants and childhood vaccine program. So
Yeah.
um, the the corruption and the amount of money that is just thrown about. How does how does a senator, Schumer, as throw out a name, and you can use any of them, who makes $170,000 a year, may have been a senator for a long time. How can he be worth $81 million?
Yeah. It's not
It
possible in
just
legal
doesn't
terms.
add up, right? So
Yeah.
um, it's and hopefully this continues, and hopefully, Elon Musk continues to expose this and this Doge, program that he's got continues to do it. I mean, it's going to be a fight. They're already taken to the court system. Our court system is all corrupt too. It's not, I mean, uh,
Yeah.
those lawyers and it's, I don't know. We're in a system right now where, uh, I mean, I think in some capacities, it just has to be burned to the ground and has to be rebuilt, um, and has to be started from scratch. And it really wouldn't be that hard if you just kind of, if you set your mind to doing it, it could happen within a few months.
Yeah.
But nobody's gonna get there.
Yeah. And for anyone out there who's not sure about Doge, Tom Renz actually just did a recent thread on Twitter and he went through the legal background of Doge and they actually took an existing federal entity and they renamed it. And it's like the US digital update system or something. So it's an entity that was supposed to come in and update the digital services of all the different US bureaucracies. So they actually do have standing. They do have, um,
Oh, cool.
yeah,
Yeah, I
they're,
didn't know
they're,
that.
yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah.
they've covered their bases and it's a really good thread. I think I retweeted it yesterday or the day before. So I'll
Okay,
link
I'll
that
look
in the
for it.
show notes. But he goes through the background and the legal support that they have to do what they're doing. And I don't even know that they're doing anything other than exposing this. And then you
Right.
see Bill, I saw Thomas Massey came in. Somebody else proposed a bill to eliminate USAID. So now you're seeing Congress responding based on the tailwind of what Doge is doing with the legal parameters and the congressional action that we so desperately need. So hopefully in this first 2 years, we get a lot done on that front.
Yeah. Well, my understanding, I mean, again, I don't know anything. I'm just some guy sitting here in Salt Lake City, without, any connections anywhere. But, um, you know, I can read and I can listen. I've got some discernment. I've got a little skepticism, a little cynicism. Um, and, I look at things and I'm just kind of like, okay, this just makes sense. Um, and it's in the end, just like we talked about, it's kind of like what is the information that we're getting out of this? It doesn't really matter. I mean, yeah, if it's being done illegally, that's one thing, right? I mean, it's just kind of like fruit of the poisonous tree, but
Yeah.
it's not. I mean, if you, and especially if, like you said, Doge is just a renamed federal agency, then great. My understanding is that, Elon Musk isn't getting paid. He's just doing this. He doesn't need to get paid. I mean, guy's, the richest man in the world. I mean, what does he need to get paid for? But
He declined a
He's just,
salary. He was offered a job. He
yeah,
declined a salary. He's doing it for free because he believes in America, I believe.
yeah. Well, and
Amazing.
it's kind of interesting that we have to have a guy who's, South African by, uh, well, I mean, South African nationality who has to be the one, exposing all of this stuff on our end. And he's getting so much pushback from, quote unquote Americans about about the corruption in our system.
I think everybody crying about what he's doing, though, is really playing their hand and exposing that they're part of the payroll. I mean, to me, that's just a target where to look and target next.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, just like anything else, right? The more flack you get, the closer you are to the target. So,
Hmm.
he's flying right over the target, and he's dropping bombs, and he's getting all that flack from everybody. And it's really interesting that press conference that they showed with all the Democratic congressmen out on, I don't even know where they were, but you notice that the pictures that they had of them were all close-up pictures with everybody kind of crammed in, and they make all these great huge announcements and all of this stuff, and they're speaking into a microphone, but there's no sound from the crowd. They don't do any large picture, backup how many people are there. I bet you there were 10 people in that audience.
Yeah.
And they're just making it look like there was a whole bunch of people just because they all stuff them all onto the stage and make them look like they're kind of like being stuffed into this tiny little space, and there's a whole bunch of people around them. So
Well,
it's
and
all
when I
about the
think of,
show.
whenever I see something like that where everybody's got their script and they're online, do you know how much it costs to get a message out there? I mean, I'm meeting with my marketing team right now for my business. It's expensive to get a message, a
Yeah.
consistent message and branding out there, and the Democrats have mastered it. I don't know what they must have their 4 a.m. press briefing and like, here's your script for the day, because they are on script every single day. And I think the conservatives need some kind of driver like that. We're kind of across the board a little more. Every day the Democrats are saying the same thing. And it may change from week to week, but
Well,
they're all on script.
well, yeah, they are. I mean, my understanding is they have a conference call with thousands of people on them every week, and then that's how you get to the where they script it, where everybody uses the same word, and we've seen that. There's that famous um, collage of journalists, right, where they all say the exact same words. They're repeating the exact same words, and you start with with one celebrity or two people on TV, and then it goes to four, and then it goes to eight, and it goes to 16, and everything else. The next thing you know, you've got a screen, with 124, yeah, 124 people, and they're saying the exact same words.
Yeah.
They have a weekly conference call where this is their message, this is what we're going to put out, and then everybody from CNN, MSNBC, Politico, you name it, says the same. They all say the same thing. So
Yeah.
what would
They do.
there's that truth truth and um, Truth and Journalism Society or something like that. There's a
Trusted News
that
Network, TNN, the Trusted
Trusted
News
News
Network,
Network,
or Trusted News
right?
Initiative, TNI. Yeah.
Trusted, yeah, TNI. Okay, Trusted News Initiative, correct.
Yes.
And they're like, they're a George Soros, Bill Gates funded organization, and they put out the message that then everybody picks up. The BBC picks up, CNN picks up, MSNBC. Everybody's the same, and then that's how
Hmm.
you get, these messages out there.
Yeah. If you
And
haven't heard of the
and it's all
Trusted,
paid for by USAID.
right? Now we know where that
That's how
comes
they get
from.
their money. That's how they do it. So
Yeah.
if you and I had the backing of the federal government and our own tax dollars being able to do that for us, then yeah. And then how do you do it? You're fighting against, those people. Those people are paying $10,000 for a 30-second commercial. Okay, so that's the going rate. You and I can't afford to do that. Um,
Right.
but the reality is that it's probably only worth $1,000 for a 30-second commercial. But because there's so much money being spent and being put into it, that's what inflation does. So you just kind of like, now you have two apples. It used to cost you $2 for those two apples, and now you've got $20 in the market. So now each apple is $10. So I
Yeah.
mean,
And
it's
one of
simple
the other dirty
finance.
tricks, one of the other dirty tricks that Dr. Mary Bowden exposed is the use of foundations. So what they found is if the
Hmm.
CDC wanted to do something, but it was too dirty for their hands, they passed the money to the CDC Foundation, and then the CDC Foundation attacked us and tried to discredit doctors like us. You have no license for disinformation. That was a group
Right.
that was funded to the tune of 300,000 back in 2018, and in
Wow.
2019 it jumped to
Yeah.
17 million a year. They've disappeared. Their website is gone. Where did they go? Where did that money go? Who's tracing that?
Right.
The CDC Foundation, the UN, shots heard around the world. These are funded by our money to tell
Right.
these corrupt doctors to push propaganda. So
Right.
when you start to peel back the layers
Well,
of the
pay
onion, it
the
gets
corrupt
disturbing.
doctors.
Huh?
They're paying those people.
Of
They're paying
course.
those people. How do
Yeah.
they sleep at night?
That I
How do
don't
they sleep
know.
at night? How does Peter Hotez sleep at night? How does Peter Hotez look at his, I think it's his daughter, who's vaccine injured, who's got autism or
Yeah.
something? How does he look at that child of his and, and say, and have any kind of ethical, moral foundation to say vaccines don't cause autism?
Well, but think
I mean,
about
I'm not
people
saying
like
they
that.
do. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that they do. My point is we don't have any science to prove it one way or the other. And yet, he's just, he's out here because he's getting paid. I mean,
Yeah.
he's getting paid to say those things, and he's got a kid that is vaccine injured, potentially
And I would
vaccine injured.
imagine if you have a child that's on the spectrum, you don't care what the answer is. Just get it right.
Right?
Just figure it
Right?
out. And
Right?
so his lack of
Or no,
curiosity
at
is
that point you
telling.
want to figure it out. You want treatment. You want to know,
Well,
how can I reverse it? How can I help my kid? And you don't want somebody shutting them down. I had a
right.
conversation with people in my office the other day about this. They were talking about, well, when I go to work and I talk to my colleagues, everybody, I said, we got to stop self-censoring. You just say it. Don't worry about what it is that they think about you. And if they're the ones that are going to, not talk to you anymore, then that's on them, not you. Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, we've been censored. And then on top of that, we've been self-censored for the fear of the ramifications of what it is that you're going to say. We've got to stop that. You can't have fear to do that anymore. You just got to, walk around with a bumper sticker that says, you know, COVID is a scam,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. And just have the science and data and information to back you up and be ready to defend yourself about it. Not physically defend yourself, but, just be able to have
Yeah.
the facts there for it. So,
And I've talked about that before. It's not the big stuff, right? It's not getting your account pulled off of Twitter. It's not having federal indictments. It's the daily discomfort for most people. It's that doing stuff
mhm,
that makes you feel uncomfortable, that like, oh, I shouldn't do this. That's what you need to do. You don't have to be a Dr.
right.
Kirk Moore and do it at the extent you did it. Do it in your world. Go to the school board, go to your kid's classroom, tell them to take down the rainbow flag.
Stop
Like,
wearing a mask.
stop wearing a
Don't tell
mask.
people, you know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
the little things like that. I mean, I used
Yeah.
to do that all the time. I used to walk around, if they couldn't go anywhere without a mask, it would be down around my chin. And
Yeah.
if somebody would tell me to wear it and put it on my face, like getting on an airline or whatever, I'd do it. And then I'd put a blanket over my head and take it off. But my point is, it's just, but now it's just, you're right. You just everybody's gotta, second smartest guy in the world on Substack has his two taglines at the end of every post that he puts out are, "Do not comply. They want us dead." And and that's kind of like I've taken on some of that. Do not comply. They want us dead. They do. We are
Yeah.
useless eaters. We are useless eaters to them.
Yeah.
That biologist or whatever it is from Israel, the guy from the WF who says that, talks about
Oh.
us all being useless eaters.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Carl, is it Carl?
Noah Harari,
Harari.
Yuval Noah Harari, right?
Yeah.
Yuval
Yeah.
Noah Harari, something like that. Yeah.
The guy
So,
that wants to push the
so
transhumanism, I believe.
right,
Yeah.
right. He wants to push the transhumanism, and he talks about all of us being useless eaters.
Yeah.
So.
So Doc, tell people, where can they follow you? Where can they track what happens with your case? Where can they support you?
So I try to keep track of. We didn't get into a lot of the specifics of my case. I spent the whole month of November in jail because I contacted two of my co-defendants and told them that we had a hearing on October 18th. One of my co-defendants took a plea, turned me in. The judge said that I had inappropriately contacted my co-defendants about my case because I had told them that we had a hearing on the 18th. And so he threw me in jail. I spent 22 days in jail. And when I got out, my further restrictions is that now I can no longer communicate by anything other than standard text message, phone calls, and get my phone has monitoring on it so that the the parole office can monitor what it is that I'm doing. But I have a Telegram channel. I'll put this podcast on there, and I think it's Understand for More. I'll send you the links, Molly.
Okay.
And and then we have a fundraising site, Give Send Go site. I think it's Fight for More, the number 4, so Fight for More. I'll send you that link as well. And and then just support us. Do not comply. Speak up. Pray for us, and just let people know. Just we have trial in July, and like you said, I'm hoping that with new FBI chief, new HHS chief, new attorney general, that this case should get dismissed the way Ethan Hames' case was dismissed. So it's a travesty of justice, in my opinion, what they're doing to us. There are no victims. This was not a vaccine, and there were no complaints. There was no fraud. They're claiming it was fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and counterfeiting. Even if we did do saline injections for people, that still generates an immune response. Measure that immune response if you want to. But it's we didn't do anything wrong, and we took care of our patients the way they wanted to. We gave them full informed consent, and that's what they chose to do. So, and we saved people's lives, kept them from being injured, gave people the opportunity to have my very last patient in October, November of 22 was a lady after we'd already shut down our clinic, our vaccine clinic. And part of the reason for that is because we were still getting, we were calling around to some of the other vaccine clinics, and they were seeing, 2 to 3 people a week at most. We were still seeing 25 to 30. And so it was, to me, raising a flag of, why is it that people are still coming? And by that time, the government had already kind of caught on. But my very last patient came to us 2 weeks or so after we had shut down, and was not, she had been taken off the kidney transplant list because she wouldn't get the COVID vaccine. And so we vaccinated her, and she got her kidney transplant. So, if that's not saving a life, then I don't know what else is. So, and we haven't talked about money. Okay, there are some claims that we made money. We didn't accept a dime from anybody. I didn't get paid for any of my supplies. I treated every single one of my COVID patients. I went to people's homes, was doing house calls. I was giving people high-dose steroids. I was buying the medications. And you know how the prices went. I mean, the cost of a hydroxychloroquine went from 2 cents a tablet to, $4 a tablet. And I was buying it in my office and giving it to my patients, not as a prescription, but just giving them their pills that, they would come into the office and I'd give them their pill for the day. I absorbed all of those costs. I didn't charge anybody. I had one patient that demanded to pay, and I charged her just the cost of the supplies. So I charged her, the cost of normal saline, the syringes. She wanted to see an outline of all this stuff. And so she paid me just for the cost of those supplies. I wasn't charging for my time, my nurse's time, anything. I was having people come in, for 5 days on high dose steroids twice a day. So BID, 12 hours apart. And I was paying my nurses to come in and do that, on my own dime. And,
that's expensive. That's expensive
so
for people
it gets
who don't run a
expensive.
clinic.
And so and again, it, the interesting thing is that the government has now pulled that out. They've taken it out of their paperwork and their indictment. They've come out and they've said, they used to say, and for the benefit of Plastic Surgery Institute, they've now taken that statement out because they realized that we didn't do anything for money. I took people out of the hospital and went to their house, started IVs on my own, and gave them instructions and would go back to their house and make sure that they were doing properly and everything else. So, desperate times call for desperate measures, and I felt obligated when people would call me and they'd say, "I'm in the hospital, I can't breathe. My oxygen saturations, the number says 86% here, and I've asked for oxygen, and they wouldn't even give me oxygen. They wouldn't even put somebody on like a nasal cannula of oxygen or anything." And I was just like, "What do you mean they won't give you oxygen?" I was like, "Put the nurse on the phone." "Well, they won't talk to you." And it's just kind of like, I don't understand the mentality, and the lack of moral foundation and ethical foundation that these people had. What do you mean? You've got somebody that can't breathe. That oxygen is certainly not going to hurt them, and if anything, it's going to help them. And you're not going to let them do that.
You've done it for
It
every other
just
patient
doesn't
your
make any
entire
sense.
career, but
Right,
now we're not going to.
right.
Yeah.
Right. So another patient comes in who doesn't need oxygen. You put it on them. You used to do that so that you could charge for the oxygen cannula tubing, that you could put that on a charge sheet and send it off and get paid for it,
Yes.
and now you don't even want to do that. It was just, it's amazing to me what this did to, what this did to medicine. So, but anyway, yeah, there's a Give, Send, Go. Pray for us. Get the word out to your friends and family. Call and talk to your senators. Call and talk to your attorney generals. Call and talk to the people that and let them know that this is going on. This is happening to us, and try to get them to kind of drop and dismiss the case. We certainly didn't do anything wrong.
Dr. Kirk Moore, God bless you. I didn't even know all those parts of your story, so thanks for sharing that. Thanks for doing the right thing, even when it was hard. Hopefully people stand up and support you, and this nonsense goes away, and there's some retribution for you for what you've been through needlessly. So we'll pray for that, and we'll post all those links in the show notes so that people can easily find them, follow you, follow your story. Thanks so much for being with us today. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, Molly. Thanks.
Yep. Tune in next time to Uncensored Truth in Medicine for more exciting stories. We'll see you then.